Action! Time for ASEAN Women and Girls. Good afternoon and welcome to the second EU-ASEAN Regional Youth Talk Show. My name is Trisa Triandesa and I will be your host for today. So, today is all about ASEAN Women and Girls. Why, you might ask? Because slightly over half the population in our region are women and girls. While there has been significant progress for women and girls here in ASEAN, but more still needs to be done to realize their full potentials. So for today's talk show, we have invited not just one, not just two, but we have three inspiring guests who have been working to empower women and girls in our region. But before we go any further, I would like to invite my co-host for today, who is none other than the EU Ambassador to ASEAN himself. Please welcome His Excellency Ambassador Igor Drismans. Hi, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you, Teresa. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Very, very excited. It's my first time to be the host of a talk show, so it's going to be a great show.
You'll be fine, I'm sure. So, Mr. Ambassador, as we saw in the opening video earlier, the EU takes gender equality and women empowerment issue very seriously. How has that been translated into the EU's engagement in the region?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for us, as the video showed, we really try to put gender issues at the heart of our external action and of our development cooperation. And by 2025, we would like the majority, 85% of our cooperation to contribute directly or indirectly to gender. But maybe just a few examples. With ASEAN, we've launched a dialogue about gender issues. A study has been launched about political participation, which was one of the big themes here. But we also work with the private sector and how to empower women in the private sector, create actions in a number of ASEAN countries. And finally, we work with civil society organizations in different ways, be it on the green economy, be it on any other issue, because of course, gender issues and women empowerment should not be defined in a very narrow sense. It should be really mainstreamed across our cooperation. And I think some of the more exciting programs are really about youth and them being the driver of change in society and in some of the programs and projects that we have.
That's interesting. So speaking of youth as drivers change, would you like to introduce our first guest for today, Mr. Ambassador?
Sure thing. Happy to. Our first guest is actually from the Philippines. She's the founder of Girl Make the First Move. There she is, which is a growing global movement of empowering women and girls of all ages to make really the positive first move in various areas of their lives. Her name is Nina Terol. I hope I pronounced that right. Hi, Nina.
Hello, good afternoon, Ambassador Igor and Teresa and everybody. Happy to be here.
Oh, welcome, Nina. I'm so glad that you're here. I love the name of your movement, by the way. Girl, make the first move. That's so empowering just by the name itself. So I really can't wait to hear more about it later. But for now, I'm going to invite our next guest. So she is the Malaysian representative for the International Women's Network. She is the founder of Youth for the Future organization, which focuses on education. Please welcome Celeste Chong from Malaysia.
Hello, everybody.
Celeste, hi.
There she is.
So happy to have you with us here today. Now, I've been reading about your organization. I see it as supporting young refugee girls to attend school. How many have you supported so far?
Oh, about 9,000 to 10,000. Yeah, but more in future.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Now we'll hear more about that later in today's show. But let's go to our last guest for today. She's a former journalist and a writer of a graphic memoir who founded a web magazine focusing on feminism and gender issues. Hera Diani from Indonesia. Welcome, Hera.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you, Teresa.
Hi,
I'm so glad
Hera.
to be here. I'm so happy to be on the panel alongside these amazing women.
I'm so honored to be here, to be talking with the ambassador, with these amazing women. So it's just, I'm like over the moon now. But about Magdalene by itself, because it's from Indonesia and I'm also from Indonesia, I'm a big fan of Magdalene. Magdalene is the web. Yeah, because it's so interesting. So it's a web magazine that the ambassador mentioned earlier. But if you're also interested, people all around the world, because most of it are in English, right, Hera?
Initially it was in English. All of it is in English. But later on, we have requests from people that you should translate the articles into Indonesian, because to reach out more. And it's true now actually like 90% of the content are in Indonesian, but 10% are still in English. You want to keep it that way.
Cool. So if you're interested or you're curious about it, you can go to magdalene.co.co. It's not .com, yes. So it's .co. So let's get to know our guest here today a little bit better. Nina, I would like to start with you. Can you tell us a little bit more about what Girl Make the First Move is all about?
All right. Thank you so much, Teresa. So Girl Make the First Move, I like to call it a GEM, G-E-M, a global empowerment movement. So it's a GEM that really seeks to inspire and empower girls and women from everywhere of all ages to make positive first moves in the different areas of our lives. So right now, we're a very new budding movement. We only started on social media, but I'm so grateful that we're actually also organizing a Girls Congress with the support of the U.S. Embassy in the Philippines in just a few weeks. So from social media, we're now going into, Girls Congresses. We also have chats on Clubhouse. We're going to have podcasts, but the core insight behind this is that I've found throughout my career, and I've been here for a while, is that, at any age and sometimes at any level, girls and women still feel like they need permission to be able to shine. It's like we're waiting for something, right? You're waiting for permission, validation, affirmation. And the insight is, wait a minute, whose permission are we waiting for? We can make first moves in different areas of our lives. These can be positive first moves. And when we let girls and women make first moves, everybody ultimately wins. So that's the core belief behind it.
Well, thanks for this, Nina. That's quite a psychological barrier, which I think is very important. It's all about the mindset, right?
It is. It
and
is.
what would you see as apart from that one being kind of the main barriers for women and girls in making the first move beyond the kind of mindset you were describing?
Mhm. Thank you for that question, Ambassador. So in some of the talks we've had with women from different parts of the world, of course, psychological is a big thing. Sometimes culture and upbringing can be another. But now that we're here also with the EU and other policymakers, we do recognize that in some areas of the world, policy has yet to catch up. We do need to still create policy that will become more empowering for women. There are also, I guess, some industrial practices. There is still a gender pay gap. So there are many barriers, some psychological, some are structural or in the process or in policy and legislation. So there are still a few that we need to tackle.
But that's interesting that who needs a permission if girls or women want to do something? Then just do it. Make your first move. You don't need any permission from any other people like outside you, right? The only one who can give you permission is yourself, right? You have to permit yourself to improve, to also to grow as a person. So
Exactly.
now move on to Celeste. You have been focusing on education, and you mentioned in the beginning that your organization has supported 10,000 young refugee girls. And I'm sorry, but how old are you?
I'm 17.
You're 17, and I'm not going to tell you my age, but I haven't done that much. So can you share more about your organization and when did you first started this and why?
I guess I first started Youth for the Future when I was 15. It's crazy how that's almost like 3 years back. But Youth for the Future is a nonprofit that, like you said, strives to help stateless communities to receive education. Because here in Malaysia, if you are undocumented or you have no passport, you can't get access to a government school or public school. So we aim to develop a safe environment for kids to attend classes and learn. So a place where authorities can't really just barge in. And we gather about like 4 times a week. The reason for this is because we found out that if we go beyond 4 times a week, the kids tend to lose interest. So we decided 4 times a week was the best cutoff date, and we try to make sessions as interactive and impactful as possible by using lots of pictures, lots of hand-on activities, and taking lots of playground breaks. So yeah, I guess it's our long-term goal is to strive not only to bring quality education to students, but also ignite a lifelong passion of learning. Yeah.
Wow, that's quite amazing. When I was 15, I was thinking mostly about soccer, to be honest, and not about the kind of things that you're doing. Is there a particular event that happened that made you realize that that is what you wanted to do in life?
Yes. Oh, in fact, yes. There was a pivotal moment when I was out with my mom in the town. I saw lots of children running around, and that prompted me to ask the question of, oh, who were they? And I was really intrigued to find out more. And I then find out that these were stateless kids from the stateless village, sorry, which I was very much shocked by because we were in the middle of the city and I couldn't see any visible stateless village nearby. Eventually, I discovered that even in the city, there was a well-hidden village of about 1,000 stateless people just 2 minutes away from the center CBD. And I found out that this wasn't the only village. There were lots and other stateless villages situated all over town. And majority of these stateless people come from the Philippines as they cross across the Sulu Sea and then reach the north point of East Malaysia. And after doing some research, I found out that the stateless community in Malaysia accounts for about 1/4 of the population, say. And so stateless children in Malaysia do not have access to formal education as, again, most public schools don't accept them. And this was considered for me a large issue, taking into account how big the stateless community it was. And in East Malaysia specifically, there is an estimate of around 3 to 4 million stateless people. So that is a lot and a lot of stateless kids out of school. And I was like, oh, wow. I wanted to do something to ensure that they could receive a formal education. And I wanted to ensure that they had a voice. And through that, education was the first thing that came in mind. And that's where Youth for the Future comes in. Yeah.
Oh,
That's
wow.
amazing. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, I also have two teenagers at home, a boy and a girl, and it's great to see that kind of age becoming conscious of the challenges there are in society, be them climate, be them gender, be them any of the contemporary challenges that we face, and then acting upon that conscious and taking the lead. So you have really all my admiration, Celeste. Now, maybe let's turn to Hera. You run a web magazine on feminism and gender issues. How do you see and assess the interest of young people on these issues, and how can we kind of stimulate them to become more conscious? Maybe not all like Celeste, but somehow, becoming a bit more involved in a way.
Right. So I'm happy to see that the interest of young people on feminism and gender issues has been growing and thriving. When Devi Asmarani, my business partner, and I started Magdalene in 2013, we just turned 8 this month. We thought that because the topic is gender and feminism, our readers will be more mature, like maybe our age, about 30. But as it turns out, it has been consistent in the past 8 years that our readers are young, 18 to 24 are the majority. And if we look at the social media, the conversation among young people about feminism and gender are also thriving. And outside of the internet, in the real world, just like Celeste and Nina, I'm happy to see that there are a lot of discussion and movement on gender issues, against sexual violence, and many other related issues on campuses, within communities. If you've been to Women's March in Jakarta in the past few years, the participants have grown so much, and more young people are joining, even as young as 6th graders. So, and I also find it exhilarating that the interest does not only emerge in big cities, in Jakarta or within Java, but in other islands from Sumatra to Kalimantan to East Nusa Tenggara. So, to raise their awareness, we in Magdalene try to continue to educate them, inform them, and empower them, so that they will this interest will grow bigger and have more impact on the society.
Okay, so now you're running a magazine, so it's a bit easier because now you can track what kind of topics that people are more interested into, like, oh, how many readers, so you can reach the right person and create content for the right people, for the right audience. So what is your audience wants to read?
Yes, it's always interesting to see what the topics they are interested in, but based on our observation and survey, there are several topics that young people of our audience always come back to, always want to read more and more. First is religion. Maybe because we are still deeply religious and conservative society, so there are a lot of curiosity, anxiety, and also maybe questions, yes, and about the norms that have been restrictive towards women. And then also the issue of gender identity, sexuality, mental health, relationship, not only with partner, but also with family and friends. Well, basically, those are the issues that are still considered taboo and rarely discussed by the mainstream media.
Thanks for that, Hera. I think it's great to have something like what you do, like Magdalene, in the region. Maybe just to mention that in the Philippines, our colleagues are working to raise the awareness of young people on issues such as mental health, family planning, HIV/AIDS, gender-based violence. They also find that engaging peer educators is very effective in spreading the message to youth. Is this true with your magazine as well, Hera?
Yes, totally, definitely, because our audience are young, and peer educators will be more effective as they understand what the young people are going through. They've been in their shoes. They speak the same language. So in the past, then until now, we have engaged students. Last years, we have a series of campus webinars on gender-based violence, and also we reach out. We engage young public figures to reach out to the youth and to spread the awareness.
That's very interesting. And I think what all of you have been doing is create a safe place for everyone, like safe community, like for Slash with kids who has not, who doesn't have any access to education, and for Nina to empower girls. Hey, if you want to do something, you can do it. You don't need any permission. You just do it right now. And from Hera, you can get a lot of information that is still very taboo and that you cannot get from mainstream media. So it's a safe place for everyone who is questioning, who are really want to improve in their life. So it's just, a big applause for all of three of you. So now, hearing what Mr. Ambassador shared about what the EU is supporting in the Philippines, I would like to ask Nina what her thoughts are. Like, how would you describe the knowledge of young Filipinos about safe sex, gender roles, maybe gender identity, and family planning?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a lot, but I'll start with gender roles, because I think in the Philippines, of course, there have been a lot of traditional gender roles, but over the past decades, we've seen the phenomenon of overseas Filipino workers or global professionals going out, and a lot of these are actually women. So there's a generation and generations, multiple generations of Filipinos, myself included, who were raised by working moms, or single moms, or households with both parents working. So it's not unusual to see a strong female at the helm of the household. So I think that's for gender roles. I think in terms of sexual orientation, gender identity, etc., I think we're also a little bit luckier than most that the conversation is out in the open. We do have a transgender legislator, like Pride March or Pride Day is a huge thing here. There are a lot of advocates. We have an LGBT Chamber of Commerce. So there is that growing awareness, and they're also starting to engage allies. However, I am disturbed by what's happening in terms of safe sex and family planning. There was a UNFPA policy brief that was released just last year, so I did my homework. But it was really disturbing because it showed, or it said that there is actually they called it a national emergency in terms of teenage pregnancies in the Philippines. There are 500 girls aged 10 to 19 years old getting pregnant and giving birth every day in the Philippines. I mean, imagine a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old, or for that matter, a teenager giving birth, and there's 500 of them happening every day. So it clearly shows that we still need to make these topics non-taboo. Hera talked about, a lot of these taboo topics. Families still don't talk about this. You probably learn about these issues through your peers, but if your environment doesn't encourage those types of topics, where do you go for information? So I think there still is a huge gap and a lot of work to be done, especially in that area.
Thanks, Nia. I think, I'm afraid that what you say about the Philippines is true for quite a few countries around the world, not just in ASEAN, but really around the world, where teen pregnancies are a real issue, exactly for the reasons that you've been explaining. Now, maybe a more personal question, because we just talked about the power of youth in driving change, and I wanted to ask you the same questions as I asked Celeste earlier. What motivated you to start what you started?
Okay, so that's starting with me, right, Ambassador? Well,
Yes.
for me, again, I'm not as young as I'm at the tail end of youth, and I've been working 20 years actually. So I've been working longer than some of you here have been alive. But again, what I've seen is that even at the highest levels, even if you're a CEO or you're a founder, there is still a psychological barrier and other barriers, cultural, legislative, other barriers that keep women from really truly being their best. And it almost feels like there's an invisible line we cannot cross in many contexts. It's like you cannot be too ambitious, you can't be too bold, you can't be too out there, you can't speak so loudly, you can't earn more than your husband, you can't earn more than your older brother. I mean, there's so many things you can't do. And sometimes it starts in the home, unfortunately. So having gone through all of these experiences myself and also having had to make my own first moves, I started Girl Make the First Move because this was the thing I wish I had when I was younger. That I would now like to share with more women, and also more women from 60 to 6 to 60. It doesn't necessarily start at a particular age. You can start as young as you can, and even if you're a senior, you still can make first moves and really move towards your best life. And I'd like to point out that a big factor of it was also having had knowledge or been exposed to the fact that there is still a lot of sexual violence and abuse that starts in the home and throughout society. And if girls learned how to make first moves, they would also learn how to be able to protect themselves, right, and say no. So making the first moves can happen in so many areas, in your physical well-being, your mental well-being, your career, your education, money, business, but also the ability to walk away from abuse and violence. So I think it's an important message we really have to share with more women and girls out there everywhere in the world.
Yeah, so make the first move. It's not just starting something, but also stopping something. If something bad happens to you, so then you have to make the first move to protect yourself.
Yes.
And tell everyone or tell someone that you can trust, say, hi, I'm experiencing this and I need help. Right?
Definitely.
So now, how about you, Hera? Starting a web magazine is definitely not an easy task. What made you decide you wanted to do this?
Yes, it is definitely not easy. But for a long time as a reader, I grew up with magazines for girls and women did not feel I did not feel represented by them. I didn't feel satisfied with the media that focuses on girls and women. Even physically, I don't feel represented because they all look the same. Those who pass the acceptable beauty standards, that is, that passed on since from the colonials. So media does not present or feature the diverse experience of women. They think what we care about are just boys or fashion or lifestyle. Of course, we do care about those things, but there are a lot of other things that we care about. And also there are a problem with the mainstream media in general in Indonesia, but I think it was also a global situation. There are sexualization and objectification of women. There's issue of sexism and stereotyping, body image issues, and so on. And in the long run, girls who read about these things then internalize these problems and feeling insecure, and then create body image issues and a lot of issues. So basically the media treat us as either as sex object or consumers or both. That's why Devi and I decided to create Magdalene. We did not know anything about media business. We just feel passionate about it. We were journalists for a long time, longer than Celeste and Nina. So we want to present like the diverse face and experience of women. We want to talk about the issues that concerning women and also men too, actually. And we want basically to educate, empower, and help young women navigate this ever fast-changing world. That's what motivates us.
Okay, now this is a personal question. Now we've heard a lot about empowering women and girls. So what do you think about beauty pageants? Do you think those Miss Malaysia, Miss Philippines, or Miss Indonesia is empowering for women and girls? What do you think, all of you?
Well, that's yeah, some this actually there's an argument between feminists itself, feminists themselves, because they said that it's a choice. But I believe that feminism is not just about choice. Or are our choices made with informed, well-informed consent? Uh, I see that beauty pageants are still based on that. They argue that it's always beauty brand behavior, but it's still the based on the beauty standard and measurement that see the women are the most important for women are their physical attributes. So I'm not really I don't really agree with beauty pageant.
How about you, Celeste? What's your opinion?
This is a really interesting question. I just have to say that first. But I think if used correctly, it could be really empowering. So, for example, these girls, but right now, from what I'm looking at beauty pageants, they all look the same. And as Hera said, there's not much diversity to this. So what I want to see is more people from different backgrounds, from different cultures, and just coming in together, because I think that's what we need. We need diversification in our society today. It's not everyone does not have to look like this perfect model, that we're not just robots or we're not just objects, but we're actually human. And I guess if used correctly, these pageants could send a message, a really powerful message that empowers other younger girls. But it has to be used correctly in order for it to be effective. Because if it's all just about how we look or how our standards are, then it failed the mission. Yeah, I think that's what I think.
That's good. Now, how about you, Nia?
Wow, yeah, that's tough. But I will speak a bit to what Celeste said about using it properly. So, for example, in the Philippines, we've had beauty queens like Pia Wurtzbach or Catriona Gray or Kylie Versosa really speaking very loudly about issues like mental health and LGBT QIA rights and all that. So they are using the platforms well, and we need that. But however, I do agree that it still sends a message that you have to have a 23-inch waistline, like you have to have those abs, and there's an industry behind all that. No beauty queen got there without a lot of industry backing and coaches, and that's not the reality for so many girls. So I think what we'd like to see is more pageants or whatever you might call this, celebrating diversity. Yeah, let's celebrate different forms of beauty. You don't have to be able to wear a string bikini to be called beautiful. You don't have to wear all of these fabulous gowns. You can be beautiful at any shape and wearing anything, but it really is about self-care and self-love and self-respect, most importantly, I think.
That's amazing. I really love your answer. And I see in the chat box that's a lot of people, oh yeah, that's my question too. That's my question too. Yeah. So now before we continue our conversation, so for our audience, so you can just put your questions in the chat box and we will choose the questions and we will address them to our guests, right, Mr. Ambassador?
Absolutely. Don't hesitate. Just put them in the chat box and we'll make sure that they answer.
Yes. So now back to Nina. I've seen one of your TED Talks video.
Oh, no.
So in that video, you talk about the virus of change making. But at the first 10 seconds, I was thinking, because you talk about virus and stuff like that, I was thinking like, oh, she knew about coronavirus 10 years ago and she was talking about it. But then after you start continuing your presentation, your talk, it's about virus of change making. So can you please elaborate about that topic or that talk especially?
Wow, first, thank you for digging that up. That was a 2010 TEDx. So, wow, more than 10 years ago, a lifetime ago for me. But yeah, I remember I spoke about, when it starts out really small, right? A virus starts really small and then it takes over your whole being. And we're seeing that happen now. But the virus of change making is really such that when you're implanted with a seed or a spark, such as Celeste or Hera as well here, it doesn't leave you. It takes hold of you and you have to be able to do something about it. And you're infected. And because you're infected, again, just in the context of today, you possibly go out infecting others because in the case of change making, you care so much about the issue. You need to be able to do something about it. You won't be able to sleep. You won't be able to eat. It keeps you up at night. It fuels your passion. So I think that's the kind of virus we'd like to spread, not the other kinds of viruses, but the kinds of, a viral movement towards change making where we're able to infect each other positively towards positively changing the things that need to be addressed in our society.
Well, we've learned a lot about viruses over the last 2 years, but that was quite a different virus you mentioned there. It's actually a benign virus. So we would need more of that particular virus spreading, isn't it?
Oh, so very, very true. So thank you for giving us the space to share that here.
I got the virus. Now, I will extend the ambassador's questions to Hera and Celeste as well. How can we spread this change-making virus to more youth in the region?
I think one part about that question that I really, really love is the mention of youth in that specifically. I think a lot of people undermine what youths really are capable of, but because we are 25% of the population, but we are 100% of the future, giving us immense strength and power in which we need to start voicing out. So I think one way to spread this virus is definitely through having conversations about these issues, because if people talk about this, more people are aware. And with more people aware, they would feel the need to spread this virus, because the more we advocate, the more likely this issue will be addressed. So talk about it with your friends, talk about it with your siblings, with your parents, and so on. For example, in order to break gender roles and societal stereotypes, we first must talk about these stereotypes. Or to achieve gender equality, we must first talk about gender equality. Because ultimately, I believe that conversations are the key in unification. Just by having a conversation with someone, you can change the way they view a certain perspective and gain insights on what they think about it. A lot of youths are advocating for a cause, but not enough are. If more of us do, a global chain of movement will rise up, and in that way, we can't be ignored. So I guess to sum it up is number one, talk about it more. Number two, wherever you're from, wherever you're tuning this from, know that you have a voice and you can use it for a greater cause. And a great example is like this youth talk show where we're all tuning in, talking about what we are passionate for and being the change. So just be the change and spread this virus to as many people as you can. Yeah.
Thank you, Celeste. Now, how about you, Hera? What do you think?
Well, as a person that is no longer youth, I'm speaking for my generation that I think that we need to reach out to the youth using the language they are most familiar with, stop with the jargon and everything. I think we also need to stop be condescending or patronizing, let the youth speak, listen to them, give them platform to their voices and aspiration, because they are, as you see, they are amazing. They can do a lot of amazing things that maybe we as the older generation cannot even think about.
True, especially with the advancement of technology. I think youth now has many platforms to do so. Like probably in my generation as well, when we were shut down, we really have nowhere else to go. We cannot say anything. But now, if you're hey, you cannot say that in your house. You have social media. You can build a community from there, right? And you can have you can go to Nina with the girl make the first move, and you can meet Celeste, and you can go to Magdalene to, if even if it's not two-way communication, but you get the information that you've been looking for. So to let them know that, hey, you're not alone, you're not experiencing this by yourself. So now I want to ask this to you too, Mr. Ambassador. What do you think we should do?
I was supposed to ask some of the questions, Teresa, not to answer them. And I definitely can't speak on behalf of the youth, even if I would wish so. But I think as a society, we also have a role to play. That is about fixing the rules. In economic terms, it's about equal pay. When it comes to politics, it's about ensuring sufficient representation. You have to do that, unfortunately, often through legislation. You can't just hope that it happens by itself. But I also want to pick up on what one of you said is as, let's say, kind of older generation, you need to open the space so that people can actually talk about it. And that goes through the issue of positive role models and so on and so forth. So there's a lot that, say, the older generations can do, but at the end of the day, I also firmly believe that change will be made by the young people. They will have to break through the barriers and make those moves that Nina was talking about.
And obviously, just keep the conversation going. Like, if you like the talk show, talk about it. Like, if you find any important key takeaways, share it on social media. And if you like what Nina, Celeste, and Hera are doing, then share about them as well on social media. So, like, women and girls know, hey, there's these women, these girls, they are doing something. So if you want to do something, you can do too. So it's not impossible, right? And I think the more we are exposed to an issue, the more we'll become more sensitive to it as well. Like, if we read more about gender roles from Magdalene, so okay, so it is something that we need to think about. And if the concept really stuck in your head, so it's just like a virus, so will be on you, and you will think about it, and then you will find a way to find someone that you can talk about that with as well. But when we talk about women, when we talk about girls, the one word that always comes up is feminism. But unfortunately, the word feminism is still often misunderstood. Would you agree, Hera? Maybe you can start to answer this first.
Yes, definitely. Even after all these years, even that feminism has gone through like several waves, it's still misunderstood. Unfortunately, despite the growing awareness on feminism, it's still considered as the bad word, the other F word, something to do with women, like to topple men or women running around, without bra or something. And in Indonesia, and particularly in this religious society, feminism is also seen as against religious norms and teaching, whereas feminist or feminism doesn't want to fight religion, but it wants to challenge restrictive gender norms that is the result of the patriarchal interpretation of religious teachings. Well, feminist movement or feminism may start from the experience of oppression of women, but then it became an ideology of collective action to dismantle all power structure that oppress and marginalize anyone, actually, with the basis of gender identity, sexuality, class, race, citizenship, ability, and so on. So this is what we know as intersectional feminism, and this is what Magdalene has been like the pillar of Magdalene, the feminism, the kind of feminism. So it is pity that feminism is still misunderstood, because I believe that feminism does not just benefit women, but everyone, including men, because men actually have also suffer from the restrictive gender norms and standards that like expect them to be strong all the time, for instance.
Toxic masculinity, right?
Toxic masculinity, that's right. So I hope people are willing to just learn what is the meaning, not just having prejudice against feminism.
Now, how about you, Celeste? What do you think about the word feminism?
Ooh, I think it was like 3 years ago when I told everyone I was a feminist, and then I got labeled feminazi. So there definitely is a lot of misconceptions with that. And the word feminism, when you say the term, there are lots of mixed reactions to it. So some people will support you, some people will have anger to a sad shake of a head. In many cases, these come from the misunderstanding of what feminism actually means. Feminism is simply the belief that men and women should have equal opportunities. Feminism does not create a society where women are superior to men. Feminism does not equal to the hatred of men. Feminism does not want anyone, no matter their gender or their pronouns, for society dictate what they should or should not do based on their gender norms. So I think feminism was actually a term that was first established in the US during the 1920s when the woman votes came to the issue. And so this word, it's what's sad is that we are entering the 21st century. Like upon entering the 21st century, we are still needing feminism to protect our rights. The word feminism has been dragged through the mud and misunderstood by so many people across the world. But if we want to see greater strides in equality for all, it is necessary to address this misconception of the word. So feminism means we want equal pay. More women in tech, more women in STEM. We want our reproductive rights. We want more women making policies. That is what feminism is all about. It's about equality, not superiority. Yeah.
That's very good because like for me, I'm studying in STEM world, I'm studying neuroscience, and in my class, like 70% are women. So it's not about it's again it's not about superiority, but it shows that women can do, in STEM they work well, and most of my professors are women as well. So there you go,
That's so
women in
cool.
STEM. Yeah. So how about you, Nia? What do you think about the word feminism?
I was actually guilty of a bit of fear around that word. And I remember one particular conversation when a friend asked me if I was a feminist, or she actually asked me, why don't you just admit that you're a feminist? And I think she was challenging me because I was into all of these women empowerment movements, and I did not want to use the label. And I said, but I'm not a feminist, I'm a humanist. And that took her back. But I think what I also meant was I don't want a label that has been judged or misunderstood to also stand for. I mean, I don't want to be misunderstood because that label is misunderstood. And as they've said, as Celeste and Hera have said, it's not about superiority. We're not saying, oh, we're better than you. It's just that the power balance has been so lopsided for centuries, for millennia, right? There was a time in our collective history as human beings when women were objects, we were slaves, we were property, we were nothing. So this is really just the consciousness that, hey, women are human beings. We have rights, we have needs, we have wants. And these are the same needs, wants, desires that men may have too. And we have all of those, we just manifest them differently. So there was a time when I was afraid to say that I was a feminist, and I to a certain extent I still say, well, I'm a humanist because I believe in equal rights for everybody, and I'm also I'd like to think I'm an ally of the LGBTQIA community. We have them in our families, so I'm very supportive, and I think it's really about let's stop looking at what one sex or gender can do better than the other, but let's also look at, we were all born with different strengths. We all have different physical capabilities, mental, emotional capabilities. It's really a matter of how can we all work together to make the world a better place? And again, when you open the door for more women, when you give women equal pay, equal opportunities, there's so much research to show that more women in boards, in corporate governance, right, in the STEM field, they actually help companies perform better. So let's open the door wider so more women can come in. It's really just about that.
I would totally agree with you, Nina. I mean, it's I mean, very often when one says the word or the words gender equality, people think about women. Well, really, we should think about society at large and not about women winning in a match against men. This is not a man of one against the other. But I think the examples you mentioned about boards and economic empowerment, we've seen it in some of the countries around the world where we achieve more gender equality. That it's good for society as a whole. If more girls and women are educated, of course it's good for the entire society. It's a bit of a no-brainer. So really, it's this one against the other kind of mindset that we would need to break in a way.
Yeah, so we need to change our mindset about gender roles and about the equality, because when we're talking feminism, it's not just about women being on top, but it's just for everyone. So people treated equally. Because like Hera said earlier, when we're talking about gender inequality, it's not only hurting women and girls, but also it's hurting the boys. Because with the toxic masculinity, so boys has to be like that and girls has to be like this, and boys cannot do this, girls cannot do this. So that's just very toxic for everyone. It's not just for the girls or for the boys. But there's also the social and structural changes when we're talking about this. How much has this changed in ASEAN, and what remains as a challenge? Maybe Nina or Celeste or Hera can answer.
Okay, I'll start and I'll point to a very specific example. The Philippines has actually been quite advanced in gender rights and really empowering women. We've had women in all levels of government, and in boards and in decision making. But and this is very personal to me, we are, I think, only one of two countries that still does not have a divorce law. And that is dangerous, because when you say through legislation that a woman who is, for example, in an abusive marriage or an abusive relationship has no other recourse, then you are in a way sentencing that woman to a life of more abuse and violence and neglect. And that could have been solved by legislation. But we're also, Hera mentioned religion, we're also a very Catholic country, and I am a Catholic, but I do recognize that there are laws that need to change, because it's also one way of protecting women. There are things that we can continue to hold sacred, and we can continue to build healthy relationships, healthy families. But for the women who need a way to get out, there should be a legal recourse for them to do so. That does not cost huge sums of money and so many years, and we just have to do a better job at that. But for me, that's one specific example, and I'm sure Celeste and Hera can share more throughout the region.
Yeah, maybe how about you, Celeste? What would be the challenge, like social or structural challenge, that probably you can talk about in the Malaysian settings?
I think one of the vivid challenges here is the lack of women representation in politics specifically. So I remember when I was like 13, I told everyone that, oh, I want to be prime minister of Malaysia and stuff like that. And because I didn't have enough role models in politics in Malaysia specifically, I was like, oh, maybe that's not an achievable task. I was being too ambitious. So I definitely think we need to address the problem of women representation in politics, because women in politics is crucial, and the positive impact of it is undeniable. It advances towards gender parity and equality, but this not only empowers women, but also strengthens the entire nation as a whole. Better representation will ensure that women's voices are heard and that their issues are fairly recognized. As studies also show that women legislators are more likely to address women's interests, and this includes reproductive health care. Representation in government affects more than just a policy. It's a tool for social empowerment. The presence of a highly visible female politician inspires political engagement, aspirations amongst the younger generations. And we need this female representation because we need our voice to be heard. The government and the cabinet represents the composition of the society as a whole. So if we have such little women in the parliament, who exactly is representing women? And are we even represented? Because for policies to be effective and sustainable, all respective parties need to have a vote on it. And we can't have one party not having a vote on what affects them personally. And with more women in politics, there is less of a us and them division, but more of a we in the term. And it is because of that division that slows down the process of solving problems today. So the we becomes more inclusive and a reminder that after all, we are one world. But I do have to say, in Malaysia, it is getting better. We used to have about 8.9% of women representation in politics, but now we have an increase to 11.2%. Though this is a small increase, it shows that we are on the right path and track. And if we continue on this path, I believe that everyone's voice will be heard.
Great answer. Thank you so much. And how about you, Hera? What do you see as a challenge in Indonesia?
Yes, there are a lot of challenges, I think, as well as representation in politics is also still a challenge, like Sela said, and entrenched patriarchy, not just in every aspect of society, actually. And also the pressing challenge is, I think, is religious, increased religious conservatism that wants to put women back in domestic realm. So then and really try to push back a lot of policies and agendas into their agenda, like the sexual the laws, the laws against sexual violence. We've been campaigning for it, but it's been years, but it's still not being passed. And we actually have a law on domestic violence, but the implementation has not been that great. So the case of domestic violence is still high. So there's a lot of homeworks that all of us need to work on. Sometimes it's frustrating because like we have like 2 steps forward, but like 10 steps back. But I think we have to keep going, because if not, we will like go back to the dark age, I think. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your answers. And now I think we should head to start answering the questions in the chat box, because there's a lot of questions. So I will start a questions from Naomi Simarmata. So her question is, in many cases in the world, why aren't men and women who have the same experience and credentials and training offered the same benefits for their skills? What caused it? What should we do to improve it as a millennial generation? Anyone would like to answer that question?
Wow, I'll take a crack at it. I think, well, one, of course, the private sector can pretty much do whatever they want, right? Especially if you're a private company, and it's really up to you to craft your own policies. But I think it's also because, for decades, there have been institutional differences in the way men and women have been paid for the same amount of work, and that doesn't get dismantled very easily. And of course, if it's men on the boards, if it's men making the decisions, right, there is no real incentive for them to change what is benefiting them. Today in the 21st century, I still hear of I have personal knowledge of companies saying, oh, don't hire more women because they're going to get pregnant and have babies and all that. So it's appalling to hear that in this day and age, but it still happens. So there are many personal societal biases. That's why I think it's important to have legislation, so that when there are arbitrary factors, again, like bias and certain private sector policies, or it's just the way things have always been done here, then you have legislation to protect the women who will be entering the workforce or who will be advancing in their careers.
Interesting. Anyone would like to add up to that?
Yeah, I like to expand on the bias. I think that that is really relevant, and I think it's really much rooted to stereotypes that have been in our contemporary society for such a long period of time. For I'm gonna talk about politics. I'm really passionate about it. So, I guess in politics itself, in Malaysia too, a lot of women um, aren't in office because of these stereotypes that women are so for a good leader, you have to be dominant, you have to be assertive, you have to be firm, you have to be driven. Whereas these stereotypes behavior more tend to overlap more for men than women. So it's because of this thinking that creates this division. And so we think that, oh, women are simply not good politicians and men are better at it. So why not let them do their job? And it's solely because of these stereotypes that is causing this. Yeah.
Hello. Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah, because my internet connection is just fell earlier. Yeah, I'd just like to add that yeah, having been in the workplace for quite a while, there are still a lot of barriers for women to like to achieve the same level as men. In Indonesia, even like only less than 5% women are CEO, something like that. And because even when they enter workforce, the barriers has already been there. And then we don't talk, there are bias and stereotypes, discrimination that doesn't count the burden of women that have to, the multiple burden of women that have to handle also domestic issues that that stem from the gender bias, gender norms. That's why they still men and women are still not in the same place in the workplace. For Magdalene, we actually have been working to talk about this. At least we have a microsite called Women Lead to push for women leadership, to push for more women in the workplace, in the decision making positions, so that it will be, yeah, the equality will be achieved. The better the bias, that the norm that Nina said that has been lopsided can be fixed. Yeah.
Yeah, so when we're talking about gender inequality nowadays, one of the like the easiest way to do that, the easiest thing that we can do is just start talking about it and start breaking the stereotype. So if you are women, or if you're women and girls, if you want to improve, then like for example, oh, I want to start a business, but it's hard for me because I'm a girl. Then just start woman-led business or woman group like business talk, right? So it's like, again, just make the first move like Nina told us. Now we have another question. How do we challenge belief and traditions that hinders progressive women on moving forward if these beliefs and traditions are deeply rooted on our culture, knowing that the value our cultural roots? This is very hard. This is very Southeast Asian problem, I guess.
Yeah.
So maybe Hera, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. It is there is no like quick fix for this problem. It's been entrenched like for thousands of years. So, but we have to start. I mean, we have to challenge, constantly challenge these beliefs and traditions. We have to start questioning. We have to start at least talking about it, and make these issues heard, so that people are more aware and not just let things be in the status quo. So I think for first start, it's we have to constantly talk about it, and then creating network, collaborate with like maybe more progressive communities, more progressive leaders, that's what we do. We engage with more progressive or moderate leaders, religious leaders, or communities, so that we can reach out more and spread the awareness more.
And Celestia, do you want to add?
Yeah. So I guess like when we're talking about traditions and cultures, there's a reason why it's been present in our society for so long. And sometimes we have to acknowledge that it's difficult to change traditions and culture. But rather what we can do is empower these young girls and women. And so instead of focusing on changing these cultures, for example, like what me and my organization do is in the stateless community where it is very traditional, we rather empower the women and give them a sense of responsibility that they can do greater things than just having a kid and taking care of the family. So we teach them entrepreneur skills and teach them how to make like sanitary pads, and they can sell it and make their own money. And that way they're more empowered. And so sometimes focusing too much on tradition is not really a good thing, but rather think what you can do outside of it and then apply that and do that. And then you will see actual great results, because 90% of the women from our enrichment program did say that they want to enter the workforce. And a lot of them actually did, which is really, really inspiring.
Great. Nina, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, I love what they both said. It's really brilliant, right? Because tradition and culture will always be there. And it does have a role in keeping the social fabric together. But perhaps what we can do, as Celeste had also mentioned, is that instead of fixating on trying to change tradition and culture, which you really can't do, energy is better spent maybe showing that we can create the change in other ways, or like you have to go instead of going through the front door, right, go through the window or the back door or the garden or something. So if you want to be able to engage policymakers, for example, and let's say you can't, then I would do what Celeste has done, which, she's actively engaging the communities and other ecosystem partners. And Hera had also talked about, different kinds of partnerships. So, and with the progressives and the moderates. So build up your ecosystem and engage in partnerships to create other changes, not necessarily in terms of tradition and culture, but economic empowerment. Because at the end of the day, we do need to economically empower more communities. And if some of these very traditional cultural groups see that you can be an ally in some ways, you can be an ally in economic empowerment, or you can be an ally in education or in disaster response, or whatever the case may be, then that still gives you an open door for dialogue at some point. So instead of combating head on, find a space where, okay, maybe we can work together in this small area, and then we start from there.
Great. And there's two similar questions. Basically, it's any tip to empower yourself. So probably, what do you do to make you feel empowered? Maybe we can start from Nina. What makes you feel empowered?
Yeah, I know.
What do you do?
I know, right? There is such a thing as imposter syndrome. I'm not sure if the audience here have heard it. Maybe a lot of us have. And there are times when imposter syndrome still hits me, and it's like, what am I doing here? I don't even know what I'm doing. And I have to credit my boss, actually, the CEO of the startup I work for, and he's male, and he told me, come on, I mean, in truth, who really knows 100% of what they're doing? We're all learning, right? But you are here in this position because you bring something to the table. So so that was a very empowering statement from a man in my circle who has also emboldened and empowered me. So I think what I would think is, I just think about what I can bring to the conversation, what I can bring to the table, and I start from my strengths. And then that's what I aim to contribute. And then the imposter syndrome goes a little bit less.
A little bit, just a little bit less.
But it helps, right? It helps.
And how about you, Celeste? What makes you feel empowered, or what do you do to make you feel empowered?
I think this talk and talking to Ninya and Hera, I think it's just so amazing seeing women stand up for other women and talking about this issue, because this issue isn't really talked about much. But when I'm looking at them talking about this issue, I feel so empowered. It's like, you know, when you're watching women stand up for other women, or when you're watching the Women March, you get all these chills and you're like, wow, I want to be a part of that. I want to speak up and speak for my community too. And I think that's also another reason why I'm so empowered, is because I found a community in which I'm really, really passionate about, you know, all these amazing girls doing an amazing woman doing amazing things. And I'm like, that's who I want to be. That's who I want to surround myself with. And it's just incredible what you're both doing. And yeah.
That's great. And how about you, Hera?
Oh, I'm so honored to be here and very humbled to be seeing both of you. And true, it's what empowers me is the sense of community, the communities that have been built all these years, that has been strengthened, and not just men but women, all gender. That has been very, really empowering. Any struggle, any frustration, any hurdles, we can always be supportive with each other and get each other back every time we feel like there's no hope. Yeah, the community is very important.
So find your community that can help empower you. So just, you know, make a good network of friends that really empowering and motivating, right? Here's a very interesting question. Basically, it's about men involvement in gender inequality, in empowering women, because some men, I mean, not some, a lot of men are into this topic, but when they are talking about empowering women, about the topic about feminism, you know, another effort that people are so afraid of, they are being cornered by other male peers because, oh, you're a man, why are you talking about this? So what do you think? How does men involvement do to this movement?
I think it is necessary, because just like how we address the term feminism, it's equality for all. So we can't have equality for all if not everyone is talking about it, if not everyone is addressing the problem. So if we want feminism, every gender, men, women, you have to be involved in this, because we're not fighting for women's rights, we're fighting for everyone's rights. And I think that pretty much sums up my answer in a really short paragraph. But basically, if we want equality for all, we need all to fight for equality for all.
Super love that. I hope you don't mind if I go next. I'm
Yeah, sure.
reminded of when I was in grade school and I was being bullied, and some of the older girls and the older boys stood up for me. So it's a similar case, right? Men can either be the bully, you can either be in the group of the bullies bullying other women, or you can be the group of the other bigger boys and girls stopping the bullies and saying, hey, that's enough. Right? So we need allies. We need men to say, that's enough. That's no longer acceptable in our society. The world has changed and we all have to evolve along with it. And it takes very strong men to also speak up and tell that to other men that, hey, you know, this kind of bro talk, no longer acceptable in the boardroom. We're not going to make those jokes anymore. And that's no longer part of the culture. So we need men to speak up that way. So it's either you're part of the bully or you're the one stopping the bully. So which one will you be?
Hera, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, I agree with both of you. We need, sadly, we still live in deeply patriarchal society that men are still, people still listen to men more than women. So it's really important to have men allies to push for gender agenda, gender equality agenda, so that the issues, yeah, it's still said that men are still being heard more, but it's the reality. So we have to be strategic about it. So we really need men to step up and be ally. And yes, as Nina said, that you don't have like to shout feminism or like I don't know you don't need to be an activist or something, but just when when your friend says sexist joke, just don't laugh about it. Don't just stay silent, but say that it's not okay. It's hurting women and is even dangerous. So yeah, you don't need to start from like big thing, but to start little from your environment and your community.
Yeah, I think that also answered another question about gender inequality at workplace, because a lot of that's still happening, unfortunately.
Right.
Like, so you have to stand up and you have to find like your male co-worker that is really concerned about this issue and to be your ally and just tell them that, hey, we need your help as well, because asking for help is also important, right? Especially when talking about this issue, like make the first move of asking for help. So like, I've been treated unfairly in the workplace, so ask for help for other people, because unfortunately that is still the fact almost, that men are still more listen. So if you cannot speak for yourself, then you need to find someone that can help speak on your behalf, right? And I think
Teresa,
that's
if I can just if I can just interject, I hate to be the breaker of this wonderful question and answer session, but I'm told we need to move on to the fun part, the other fun part of the conversation. And I see so many questions. I'm afraid we will need to find some other way of answering those.
Yeah, I agree. I was just about to do that. And also, I think Nina already said in the chat box, if you want to ask anything, just connect through Nina's LinkedIn, so you can talk more and follow her or follow all these people's amazing social media accounts. Now, we have games. So these games will involve all of you, including you, Mr. Ambassador. You have to be part of this game. You're not the host anymore now. You're the participant. So I will ask questions, and so I will address these questions to all of you. So first of all, who wants to be the first victim of me asking the question? Let's not do ladies first, okay? Let's do men first. Okay, so Mr. Ambassador, I have this question for you. Globally, women and girls use the internet 12.5% less than men and boys. Is it true or false?
Difficult one, but I would go for true.
Well, that is correct. Congratulations, Mr. Ambassador. Next, I would like to ask Nina, true or false? 68% of women still earns less than their partners.
I would say false, but because I saw a statistic that it's not just that 68% of women earn less, but it's that women earn just 68% of what men make. So I don't know, there's a 68% somewhere in there, but I would say that as it's currently written, maybe the statement is false.
No, but that is true. Yeah. You're That's very good. Now next to Celeste. Which one of the Sustainable Developmental Goals, or SDGs, that aims to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls? Which goal?
I'm going to say SDG 5.
Correct. Yay. Woohoo. Oh, she really learns, she really studies. She did her research. That's very good. And another one, true or false, Hera? More than 90% of women have the final say on small household purchases.
Yeah, at first I thought it was false because I think men have more say on household purchases, but then as I noticed that the small household purchases, so I think it's true.
That is correct as well. Woohoo! Now I would like to answer all to ask all of you. Name one inspiring woman who promotes feminism and human rights from ASEAN. We can start from Mr. Ambassador. Who will that be? Who is that woman?
Can I choose the three ladies here today?
Yeah, sure. You can just three of them then.
Yes. Thank you.
That's good. And how about you, Nia?
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to introduce you to a name because I work in technology. So I'm a female in the tech space. And one of the women I recently met, we had a call. Her name is Shi Liu. I'll put her name up here. And she is the founder of a company called Fern, or I'll put it up on the chat. It's fernhealth.com. And she's not an activist per se, but fernhealth.com is, so it's a startup. It's a service that provides very discreet at-home screening, right, for women who need reproductive health screening without judgment, without bias. And I thought that this is very brilliant because you don't need to be out in the street and being an activist. You can actually bring your activism and your cause to life by building a product around it. So I felt it was very smart because women need access to medical screening and reproductive health screening without judgment, without bias. And here's a technology company that makes it happen. We need to remove those types of cultural biases and barriers so that women can get the healthcare that they need. And I felt that this is really smart. And I would love for more women to be in technology, more women to be founders, and more women to actually channel their activism through really innovative products and services.
That's very cool. Now, how about you, Celeste?
I'm gonna go with what the ambassador said. I have to say, Ninya and Hera, you both inspire me today, and I just feel so empowered. And after this, I'm gonna do so. I'm so empowered to do much more, and it's all thanks to you both.
That's so great.
Thank you.
And how about you, Hera?
Not from my own country, right? Or anyone? Okay. Now I have to say Ninya and Celeste, but really, truly, I'm mind blown by both of you. But I also want to give a shout out to our friend in Myanmar, especially this badass feminist activist Tin Tin Nyo. I hope I pronounced her name right. And I want to send out solidarity to all women and men there, given in this situation.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your answers. And now we have a quiz that will, so I will invite all the attendees in this talk show to participate in the Kahoot suite, the Kahoot quiz. So there you go. So you just go to the kahoot.it and put in the game pin, which is 908311. Go to kahoot.it. So we're waiting for players. So I invite you, all the participants, to go to kahoot.it and put in the game pin 908311. There we go. We're still waiting. There's a lot of cute names. Joyful Lobster, Rational Bobcat, Lucky Eagle, Daring Alpaca, Social Bunny. So we have 41 participants now. How many participants are we expecting to be in the game? Okay, it's 50 now. Oh, it's 50 now. Even Nia is joined in the Kahoot quiz. So if If you participate in this quiz and you won, you will get a special hamper from EU. So that's the prize. Now we're still waiting for the participants to join our Kahoot quiz. We have 67 now. So if you haven't joined, just go to kahoot.it and put 908-311. Okay, let's start the game now. Ooh, I'm excited and nervous as well. In 3, 2, 1. First question, what is the new EU policy framework to promote gender equality and women empowerment in EU external actions 2021-2025? We had this in our opening video, so and the answer is the EU's Gender Action Plan 3. So there's 25 people answered correct. And Amusing Cheetah is the first one who answered it correctly. That's cool. So true or false, at least 75% of new EU actions contribute to the objective of gender equality and women empowerment by 2025. The answer is false. Not only, but it's even more. It's 85% of new EU actions. Genius Buffalo. And the next one, how many focus areas are included in the EU Gender Action Plan? 1, 2, no, 3, 4, 5, or 6? Answer is 6, and 29 people answer it correctly. And who is the fastest to answer it correctly? It's Amusing Cheetah again. Woohoo! Now, next question. The action plan calls for the European Union to lead by example. Is it true or false? It's also in the video, so if you watch the video, you will know the answers. Yep, it's true. And let's see. Ooh, Amusing Cheetah is still leading. That's cool. Now, the next question would be, all of these are focus area of EU Gender Action Plan, the third. Except the correct answer is green job transition. It is not included in the EU Gender Action Plan, the third. Oh, Amusing Cheetah again. Next one, what is the EU-funded program that supports women migrant workers in the ASEAN region? Safe and Fair, UN Women Asia, ILO, or ASEAN Women? The answer is Safe and Fair. Only 6% answered correctly. And who will that be? It's Amusing Cheetah again. Very good. Now next, how many young refugee girls have been supported by the Youth for the Future organization to attend school in Malaysia? 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, or 50,000? It's 10,000. Celeste already mentioned this in our conversation earlier. And Shining Duck answered correctly, the fastest. Next, Magdalene.co welcomes writings, illustrations, and multimedia from anyone, only on issues related to women and empowerment. True or false? It's false, because it includes women, minority groups, empowerment, tolerance, pluralism, other aspects of progressive society, from politics, social issues, religion, sexuality, to pop culture. So basically, it's everything. Next one. What is a community founded by Nina Terol to empower women and girls of all ages to make positive first moves in various areas in their lives? This is easy. Nina is giving you the look. If you don't know this answer, you're rude. You're not paying attention. Yep, it's Girl Make the First Move. Dandy Dragon. Ooh, wow, Dandy Dragon. Now, last question. How many women in ASEAN are estimated to not have completed their education or have no access to education? 2%, 3%, 4%, or 5%? The correct answer is 4%. So let's see who won the quiz. Oh, Mighty Goose. There you go. Champion Possum. And the winner is Dandy Dragon! So Dandy Dragon, Champion Possum, and Mighty Goose will receive an exclusive hamper from the EU. Congratulations! So now, before we continue, I have a short video to show you. So please carry on with the video.
Community and Family Services International is a humanitarian organization committed to peace and social development with a particular interest in psychosocial dimension. The purpose of CFSI is rebuilding lives. Based in the Philippines, CFSI works internationally, primarily but not exclusively in the Asia and Pacific region. The present project for the young people in Pasay City. In partnership with Medicines No More, co-funded by the European Union. And now, our project logo, ARTO, Planong Kinabukasan Ating Pag-usapan, Sexual Reproductive Health Project. Our project title, Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights for the Children and Young People in Pasay City. Our overall objective, contribute to safeguarding and advancing sexual reproductive health and rights for the young people 10 to 24 years old in Pasay City.
That's very interesting program. So that program is supported by the EU delegation in the Philippines. So it's a very youth-friendly and also youth-led as well. So you can see, as you can see, there's a lot of youth involved and also participate and also be the change makers there. Now it's for all the audience. So we have another social media challenge. So this challenge is a snap, share, and win. So you need to upload and download your picture at tw.nz/women girls action. Post it on your social media and please make sure your account is not private. And mention at EU in ASEAN and tag 3 of your friends. So the campaign will last until Wednesday on 6th of October 2021, and the best 3 lucky winners will get the EU special hamper, and the winners will be announced on at EU in ASEAN Facebook and Instagram stories on Thursday, 7 October 2021. So let's move on. So don't forget to participate in the social media challenge. So we have heard a lot of amazing stuff from Hera, Nina, and also from Celeste. Now, I would like to ask Mr. Ambassador to summarize the talk show today.
Well, this is quite a challenge. I think we've had an excellent discussion, very inspiring. We heard about the different elements of gender inequality, so to speak. We heard about political challenges and female participation at different levels. We heard about economic challenges and female participation in the workforce, women empowerment in businesses. We heard about societal challenges and the kind of the negative force of some cultures sometimes. But I think the thread throughout, I think, was the issue of the mindset at the different aspects of gender equality. And I do hope that with the talk show that we had today, we addressed that issue just a little bit. That by having this conversation, that we inspire others. At least that was the case for me. So thank you so much from my side. Back to you, Teresa.
Now I would like to invite guest speakers to share their last words to the audience. Maybe we can start from Nina.
All right, you already know what I'm going to say. Girl, make the first move, whether it's, for yourself and your self-image, your health and wellness, relationships, your school, your career, business, at any age. Please go ahead and make the first move. Look for allies, as we've talked about here, that can support you. And just know that no matter where you are, you and your experience, you have something to share with the world, and that is more than enough to get started on a first move. And lastly, I just would like to invite everybody to a Girls Congress we're having on October 11th, the International Day of the Girl. Just head over to Facebook at Girls Congress, and then you'll be seeing updates from there. Thank you so much for this great opportunity. It's really been wonderful.
Thank you, Nina. And how about you, Celeste?
I'd like to say, oh, wow, thank you everyone for tuning in, because you here just shows that we are the change. And also, if you're interested in looking for ways to help out, Girl Up is an amazing initiative started by the United Nations. So wherever you are from in the world, whether you're in university, college, or high school like me, you can start your own Girl Up club, and you can focus on any type of gender equality issues you want. So definitely start one, and then you find your own community and you find your voice within it too. Yeah, and also Teresa, don't forget to invite Ambassador Noel after this.
Yeah, I will. And Hera?
Yes, thank you for having me here, so for inviting me here. As I said, we still have a lot of homework to be done. So let's get on to work. Let's collaborate. Let's network. Let's work together to achieve gender equality for all and bring patriarchy down.
Oh, wow. And now, lastly, I would like to invite His Excellency Ambassador Noel Sarbigun, Permanent Representative of the Philippines to ASEAN, to deliver his closing remarks. Hi, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you, Teresa.
You're welcome.
Ambassador Igor, my good partner here in Jakarta, distinguished panelists, citizens of ASEAN, especially the young ones, friends of ASEAN, good afternoon. We have reached the end of the second EU-ASEAN Youth Talk show with a very interesting title, Action, Time for ASEAN Women and Girls. I believe that we can all look back on an extremely productive hour-and-a-half session that had provided an opportunity for the young people of ASEAN, the future leaders, to learn from our three speakers on possible ways they can actively engage and participate in promoting gender equality and empowering women and girls. I'm so happy to hear again from our young citizens on how passionate they are about the concerns of women and girls. I could remember during my student days, that was 40 years ago, when these issues were still developing in the Philippines, and how we learned that the campaign to promote welfare of workers, peasants, migrants, indigenous communities, and the urban poor have a gender dimension. Until now, I could still remember one poem that was introduced to me during my younger days. I hope you have read it. It is entitled For Every Woman by Nancy Smith. I always refer to it in my March 8 messages. You know, March 8, especially when I remind my wife and my sister and my other friends. I am impressed about the statements made by our panelists. Nina mentioned about how migration has changed gender roles, and I have seen this in my over 30 years of work in the Foreign Service. You also mentioned about the dangers of domestic sexual violence. Also related to migration, Celeste pointed about the education needs of young women in cross-border and refugee communities. And Ibu Hira, you touched on very important taboos, which are caused by historical, including our colonial past, cultural, and religious factors. A lot has been accomplished by ASEAN, but still a lot has to be done. Gender equality and empowerment of women and girls are central to ASEAN's priorities. In November 2020, the first ASEAN Women Leaders Summit was held in Hanoi. ASEAN leaders recognized the significant role of women in building a more sustainable and inclusive ASEAN community in the post-pandemic period, and affirmed ASEAN's steadfast commitment to promote gender equality and empowerment of women and girls. ASEAN commitment to promotion of gender equality and empowerment of women and girls finds itself also in several ASEAN statements and action plans, including the 2018 to 2022 ASEAN EU Plan of Action, which we will be renewing with Ambassador Igor in the near future for the next 5 years. I am thankful to the European Union that it has decided to continue to be in the forefront in promoting discussion about gender issues. With the new technologies such as webinars like this and YouTube and Facebook video blogs that resulted from the lockdown caused by this COVID-19 pandemic, I am hopeful that the discussion about these issues could be done regularly in the hope that by spreading awareness, you would be able to influence our policy makers. As the father of 2 young men who are very much concerned of gender issues, I have seen how these new technologies have been effective in disseminating positions on social issues. In the future, I hope we can also examine together with our EU friends the advances in promoting gender equality in Europe that would help us in ASEAN develop our own understanding, our own narrative concerning women and girls in the Southeast Asia region. As the representative of the Philippines, which is the ASEAN country coordinator for ASEAN-European Union relations, I would like to congratulate Ambassador Igor and his team at the European Union mission for him especially as an excellent co-host in his premiere talk show. I am sure that your 2 young children are proud of your new role, Ambassador Igor. Young ASEAN citizens and friends of ASEAN, in closing, allow me to quote a portion of that poem by Nancy Smith, which I have always quoted all these years. It says, "For every woman who takes a step towards her own liberation, there is a man who finds the way to freedom has been made a little easier." Thank you.
Thank you very much for the closing remarks, Mr. Ambassador. That was amazing. So now before we end our talk show, I would like to ask everyone to turn on the camera and then we can take a picture together. And so are we ready to take picture? Everyone? Oh, yeah. There we go. Yeah.
In 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Smile. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am so happy to be part of this event. Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador Noel, Mr. Ambassador Igor, Hera, Celeste, and Nina for being part of this show. And thank you for inviting me as the host as well. And thank you for all the participants, all attendees who are in this talk show. We really, really have a great time talking about this issue. And hopefully this conversation keeps growing and just keeps we can continue the conversation going, because this is a very important issue for all of us. So I'm Trisatri Andesa signing off. Thank you so much and have a nice day. Bye, everyone.